part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Look up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane.
This is Jason J. Lewis, the voice of Superman on Justice League Action. This is Mark Wade, writer of Superman Worldwide. You're listening to the Krypton Report.
Welcome back to Flash Week. It is Tyler, and with me is the most beautiful, the greatest, my Iris West. If I was Barry Allen,
oh,
that's right. It's Junia. What's up?
What's up? Why am I Iris?
If I'm Barry, you're Iris.
Look, okay.
If I'm Wally, you're Linda. Or wait a minute.
But my darling, like, let's just be honest here. Iris in this series is not my favorite. So.
Look, I will go on record again that Grant had the best chemistry with Patty in season 2. Like, I loved his chemistry with Supergirl was sweet, but they made a great friendship. But his chemistry with Patty was so much more believable.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be Iris in this context. Not that I don't like the actress. The actress, I cannot talk. The actress is quite lovely. It's the characterization of it that has evolved over time. Because watching this pilot really made me realize, holy crap, has she evolved?
Yeah. So what we're going to look at is, we're going to talk a little bit about the Grant Gustin series. As of this recording, it has not ended. It's about to. But we're just getting all of our ducks in a row. And what we're really looking at is the pilot episode. And I asked Junia to join with me because we have an interesting history with the pilot. And, you know, Junia is awesome. She watches all the shows with me. Some of them...
For the most part.
Yeah, I'll say some of them after a while she kind of drops off because she gets tired of the bullcrap. That's what I
don't
love
push through it for the thrill like you do, where you're, and it's not even thrill, it's just the dedication. That's what I want to say. You have a loyalty and dedication to things that I just don't always have. So.
And what's interesting is when we recorded this, I got Junia to watch the It's My Party and I'll Cry If I Want To episode, which was the Return of Oliver Queen. And it makes a really cool bookend. To see that episode, then watch the pilot.
It was cool.
Like, we watched them in reverse because, you know, I was watching that and she watched it with me. And then I was like, well, hey, you just want to go ahead and watch the pilot. And what was cool, too, is the kids came in and sat down and watched the pilot with us. And
asking questions and being kids.
And I love it because the first 2 seasons of The Flash are gold. I mean, that's kind of a comfort show for me.
I loved the first couple of seasons of Flash. I loved the dynamic. I loved Barry's character. There's so many things I loved about that show when it first came out. So,
like, it was so refreshing when we watched the pilot to see Cisco and proper Caitlin again.
I missed Cisco. He's got to be a favorite of mine.
And even Tom Cavanaugh again.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Tom Cavanaugh is one of those actors that's just like chef's kiss, like excellent actor, you know, like.
But let's go back to 2014. We were watching Arrow, and now I wanted to before we recorded this, but I didn't get a chance to. I wanted to go back and watch Arrow season 2, The Chemist, and 3 Ghosts. When Grant looks extremely baby-faced. But I remember when he got cast, and I was like, okay, cool. And it's interesting, like, how young he looks in the Arrow shows, and just the short amount of time, you know, from that to his show debuting, he grew up. But we were so excited. We were enjoying Arrow. I enjoyed the crossover episodes. And I remember when you and I remember we were living in North Carolina. We were on the couch watching Arrow, and how freaking excited I got because I could not believe that they went all the way in that episode with him getting struck by lightning.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like, that episode ends with him getting struck by lightning, and also we learned that Slade Wilson's alive. Like, it was an amazing...
Wild episode. Absolutely.
Now, I say that, and we'll come back to that. But at this time, we were in North Carolina, and what was interesting was that it was at this time we were moving back to Ohio because of Solomon, and the pilot, in the spring, the pilot leaked online. And I didn't go looking for it, but a friend of mine gave me a thumb drive with it. And I was so excited I had to watch it. And I did. And then I remember Junia, I had watch it while we were driving overnight back to Ohio. And it was just so good. I mean, it was just... It was, like I said, it was everything I could want in a show. You know, looking at it now, like, the engine of what moves this show was present, and you could just tell, like, there was going to be something to this series.
Oh, absolutely. It hit all of the things that you would want it to hit in just a short period of time in that. And it gave us so many answers in a short episode. It gave us a beautiful picture of who Barry Allen was. And see, initially, just throwing this out there, initially when we saw Grant Gustin, I was really, really like, I don't know if this guy's going to be good. And I do this sometimes. I'll judge a book by its cover, like, hence, you know, Superman and Lois. And, you know, I absolutely love Lois now, where at first I was like, I don't know if she's going to be good at this. Like, she's now, like, amazing to me. I did the same thing with Grant Gustin at first, where I was like, I don't know if this dude looks like he's going to be able to do this well, but I'll try it, you know? Mm-hmm. I'll try anything, really. Like, I'll give it a shot at least one time.
I mean, that's my DC rules. I'll at least watch the pilot.
Yeah, so I was like, you know, well, I tried to come in with, like, clear eyes and whatnot and see it for what it was. And I have to say, like, in that first episode, there was no disappointment whatsoever. Like, the dude was just... I fell in love with him running late to the crime scene. I fell in love with him. I was just like, and there he is. Like...
It's so great to hear when he talked about auditioning, how he's like, I'm not going to get this. He's looking around at the other guys that are more like what you would expect. Mm-hmm. And he's like, they're not good. And I appreciate them for going for a different direction with the type of lead they got to be the superhero, because I think it works for the character.
Well, I mean, gosh, Grant Gustin's energy,
right,
is just, he just fits so beautifully into the character. And I don't know, there's like a wholesome kind of vibe about Grant Gustin.
Yes.
I love the dude. I love the dude.
I would love to meet him and just talk about Superman. Like, I've told you that before, because like he's a huge
You need
Superman.
to bring him on the podcast,
like,
just for the
I'm
sheer
like, look, I know you're the Flash, okay?
Like, can
but
we just
we're
talk
just
about
gonna,
Superman together?
We're just going to nerd out about Superman, and the only thing I want to ask you about the Flash is, what was it like to stand on set with two Supermen, okay?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because he has a Superman tattoo also. Well,
I mean, you know what? That might be a little bit refreshing for him, to be honest with you, after all of his interviews about being the Flash, so.
Exactly. What's funny is that the year that the show was going to debut, in 2014, is when I got my Flash tattoo at the start of the series.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
You know, it's interesting because when I got my Superman tattoo, when I got my Superman tattoo, it was when Smallville was ending. Mm-hmm. But yes, I got a Flash tattoo on the back of my leg, which I love.
Nerd.
But it was something that was exciting. You know, that was an exciting time in our life. It was, I remember being at work when the first image of him showed up online in suit, and it was horrible. Like, it was a bad picture. It just looked weird.
Yeah, you sent that to me, and I was just like, what the heck am I looking at?
I think was it the same day they also released the first image of Matt Ryan as Constantine. Oh, and he looked cool as crap. But then the next day was like leaked images from the pilot behind the scenes and I was like, oh, this looks cool. Like, he looks good. Like, the suit, you know, when it first looked, I was like, oh, it's dark red. And I was like, oh, it looks different. Mm-hmm. But I liked it because it's that kind of origin suit that comes out like in the episode.
Say that word again.
Origin suit.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
Orangelin suit. But you know what I'm saying? Where it gives them somewhere to go.
Mm-hmm.
We have the whole Cisco made it for this, and then it gives them somewhere to go with the suit. And now we have like suit perfection. When
you are starting a character like that, you wouldn't want everything at once because you have nothing to grow to. You have there's no space for improvement or space for growth for this character. Like, they need to be able to grow along with everything else in the show. So yeah, absolutely.
I think with the Flash, it's the best. I mean, Arrow, like we talked about, like his suit grew, but the thing was, it was so
somewhat. It's not very memorable.
It's right. Like, if you show me like pictures, like this is season 1. Okay, you have Yao Fei's hood. That's about it. You know what I'm saying? And the grease paint. Mm-hmm. And then in season 2, you get the mask. Woo! Mm-hmm. And then eventually, season 4, he did the sleeveless thing. And then they do...
Oh, yeah.
He eventually gets a cloth hood because Yao Fei's hood was destroyed.
But
so, I mean, it's so subtle.
The thing about his character, though, is that he is kind of like this subtle ninja-esque character that's not really meant to look flashy in any kind of flashy. See what I did there?
Yes.
But he's not meant to look flashy, really, at all. He's supposed to be more behind the scenes. So it makes sense that his stuff wouldn't really evolve the way that, like, Flash's would, for instance. Flash is a symbol. Flash is something that people really look up to quite very similarly to Superman and the energy that, you would have with looking up to Superman. Like, Superman is a symbol of hope. Flash is a
symbol of hope.
A symbol of hope, too.
When they did the Darkest Night event.
Continue.
And a lot of the major DC heroes were given lantern rings. Flash was given blue. Mm-hmm. And that was an awesome little part. And like you and I were talking after, is like, the thing about that makes Flash a little bit different is he's on the ground. Even though he's moving fast, he'll stop a lot and he's on the ground.
He's grounded. He's with the people.
And I pointed out to Junia different things. I've been doing a deep dive reading different Flash era comics and stuff. It's just how when they bring a Flash to live action, and she hasn't watched the John Wesley Ship pilot with me, which I'm going to get her to watch it with me, but she's not going to cast with me about it. There's always this little bit of amalgamation, it seems like, between Wally West and Barry Allen. Yeah. And even though in the Flash series here with Grant, we do get a Wallace. We gotta be very, very precise. Wallace. And this is the most true, I think, Barry Allen that we get. But there's still a lot to, I don't know. I lost my train of thought. But anyways, we're going to go through just little beats of the episode. The first thing I want to point out is when they originally announced The Flash, they were going to use Arrow as the backdoor pilot. But they were so impressed, the CW and everything else, they made a traditional pilot for The Flash. That's why it's very weird. And I wanted to show Junia this. There's little subtle things in where the Arrow episode takes place and where the pilot of The Flash that don't quite line up.
Timeline wise.
Because in the Arrow episode, he's just returning from Star City when he gets struck. Here we have that little bit beforehand of his day before he gets struck. Now, it's been so long since that they tried to retcon it again in an episode of Legends where he was on the train coming back from Star City and he's sitting with Professor Stein. So they tried to like smooth it and retcon it again, and I just let it go. Whatever. It hurts my continuity brain. I'm just gonna let it slide. Time compression.
Some things you gotta release.
This is a thing we learned in film school. Time compression. Mm-hmm. But I love that it starts with the voiceover in the clouds and the music.
The music in this show, I have to tell you, is so iconic.
It moves me. Like, it touches my soul. And I don't even say that a lot. Like, I really don't say that a lot, but those notes of like the dun, dun, Like, because it's one of your ringtones, and I used to have it. Like, it gives me hope and brings me enlightenment and takes me back to when the show started.
I think it's really peaceful.
There we go. That's the word I was looking for.
I feel like it opens a new door of hope, like through peace, though. Like, because it's comforting, it's gentle, it's soothing. It makes you want to trust him immediately.
It may be the best music. I feel like all the people that's worked on all the superhero shows for the CW, they've all done a great job.
Absolutely.
But I feel like this was the best up until Superman and Lois. But I'm not counting that because Blake Neely did the music for most all the shows. Mm-hmm. Then eventually he brought people in to work with him. Superman and Lois never did Blake Neely. Dan Roma did it. So it's an outlier. But I feel like everyone brought their A game, the best A game possible to the Flash, and to the Flash pilot.
It was excellent
because that music is the most iconic. We get the the voiceover. We see that it's directed by David Nutter, one of my, I guess you could say, like, professional people to look up to. The Pilot King, he does.
Wait, you look up to somebody?
I know. He does amazing work as directing pilots. He's done Arrow, Supernatural, Smallville, The Flash, Dark Angel, and more. He's actually one of the few people to ever direct more than one Superman. He's directed Tom Welling. He directed Superboy. And I cannot remember if he ever got to direct Tyler or not. I don't think so. But there's I think him, Glenn Winter, and I think there's one more that's actually got to direct more than one Superman.
That's pretty cool. Well, we know that he is very successful at what he does.
Yes, he is. So it's like, who else would you bring in to launch your series? And directing the pilot's tricky.
I would say so. It has to be captivating immediately.
I mean,
otherwise, why?
How many shows have we watched, or people has happened, where people say, "Well, you just got to make it through like the first 2 episodes, the first 3 episodes."
So many.
And the thing
I've said that to people before.
And sometimes it's true, but the pilot's design, it's supposed to introduce your characters, introduce the threat, and build the engine, which is the mechanism that the whole series drives on.
You have to have a reason to stay.
Yeah.
And it can't be something flashy.
Yeah.
Once again, yeah. It can't be anything that's like superficial. It has to be something with heart that makes you interested in diving deeper. Like, you have to see something that you can align with on a very deep, like, emotional level. And if you can't in that first couple of episodes, or that first episode in particular, a lot of people don't want to go past that. And I don't blame them, to be honest with you. Because if you can't give me a good characterization that I want, or a storyline that I want to dive further into, or that, sparks that interest of depth within me, like, what's the point?
Exactly. I was going to say, crap. Now, one thing that this show did was this was the first introduction of changing Iris to African American, or that's slowly been changed in animation and in film. We did see Iris in Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Which was controversial at the first time, like when it came out. I remember that, like, some people were, not a huge fan of the shift or whatever. But I honestly, I just want to say this one thing: if we get Joe out of the situation, awesome.
Oh, Joe,
the dude who plays Joe is like
Joe West.
Amazing.
Immediately became #1 TV dad for me.
He's amazing.
Like, #1 was always Mr. Matthews from Boy Meets World. Mm-hmm. #2, John Kent. Joe West became #1 TV dad for me.
#1.
And then the other thing that they introduced was just the dynamic with Joe and Barry as, like, the surrogate father. But the whole, like... And some people really hated this because, like, oh, it's like Barry loves his sister. I mean, they were...
They grew up together.
Joe never adopted Barry. He took care of him. He was a guardian. They grew up they were best friends beforehand, and they grew up in this interesting sibling-esque friendship. And he loved her. It's an interesting dynamic, but some people really hated it. He's dating his sister, man.
They're not freaking blood related. This is not incestual.
Right.
We're...
Cut to Game of Thrones.
Right, exactly. You got problems, watch that show. Come on.
But that was a different dynamic, and Joe West was probably... It's one of those things I'll watch the show if it's the ever-growing adventures of Joe West.
For reals.
But one thing that this pilot did that I loved that was never done again, and it breaks my heart, was really play up Barry Allen as the CSI. Now, when he arrives to the first crime scene, like Junia said, he's running late. You see this kind of him examining the crime scene, and we see his mind working, little things like math, and I thought that was excellent. Sorry, I'm burping. But then it gets dropped. We never see it again. They kind of dumb down Barry a little bit because they build the Team Flash. And they're like, oh, we can't have Barry actually be smart because we have to have the team work together and everyone else is smart too, which really annoyed me.
Yeah.
But I really liked, Barry as the crime scene. Now, what's interesting is in the television series, there's one line that says something about, and I have it written down, him as an assistant or something, because that's what he's a junior CSI in Arrow, but we never see any other CSIs.
No, we don't. It's always him.
And he has his own big lab. So it's they tweaked it and changed it, even though in this they mentioned it. But what we have in the episode is he shows up late. We have a very interesting interaction where he gives Joe a candy bar.
That's the one thing that I think endears you to him almost immediately is how freaking awkward he is. He is so awkward. And it's not obvious awkward. It's you almost feel bad for him kind of awkward. We're not slapstick awkward here. We're just, I don't know, it made me look at him and be like, that's a little bit of me right there,
Or when he grabs the pen from the officer to pick up the evidence, and the guy's like, my father gave me that pen on his deathbed. And he's like, sorry? It's just the little things like that. We do see, just hitting the high points.
Go for it.
Linda Park, who is a TV reporter, who I told Junia, is that's eventually Wally West's wife, and then they do bring Linda back later and kind of age her down and make her more manageable. Manageable? For me, she's going to be eventually manageable for the dynamic.
That's a fun.
If they want to make her Wally West's wife at some point, but this is Wallace because he starts as Wally, but eventually they have to do that transition, much like the comics, where he's Wallace because. There's a whole other theory behind that, but whatever.
You'll have to explain that to me later.
I will.
Because that's something I don't understand.
So he's struck by lightning, and then we get 9 months later, and he wakes up in a coma at Star Labs.
God, could you imagine?
Being in a coma for 9 months?
Oh my God.
Me in the coma, or being the person on the outside waiting for you to wake up?
Either.
Because the waiting for you to wake up would suck. Me in the coma, I just wake up. It's whoa, hey, what's up?
Yeah, but waking up and things the things that have changed in 9 months. Holy crap!
I like the subtlety of him waking up and he's the whole lightning gave me abs thing. I mean, after I heard that, I tried to run through the lightning storm. It did not work. I did not get struck by lightning.
You're funny.
Just look out my tub. But we
gotta try that again.
We have Cisco. We have Cisco and Caitlin, who we actually got an episode of Arrow that they were in to kind of backdoor introduce them to us. Mm-hmm. And towards the end of season 2, so in that 9-month time period, and we do get a lot of Easter eggs when he wakes up. We got the Grodd cage. We learned that he didn't flatline like everyone thought. His heart was beating too fast. And the thing is, I feel like, yes, I'm glad that they did the whole Star Labs thing with him, there at Star Labs and working. But I feel like it really took away from the thrill of the CSI angle. And I feel like they tried to bring that back a little bit more in season 3 with Julian, but they just never got back there like I would have liked.
No, it was very, mildly touched on.
We find out we have our proto weather wizard by, I keep wanting to say Chad Martin, but the actor is Chad Rook. So it's Clyde Martin.
That's funny.
And he makes weather. It's pretty awesome.
He makes weather.
The kids they're like, what's he going to do? I really got the thrill of watching this with the kids.
Oh, it's
because that's what it was for. Like when this show, it was supposed to be, it was a family show. Right. That's how The Flash was always designed. It still is. It's just now it's a little bit more boring because all these dumb side characters. But, it was a family show. And watching it with the kids is really special because it's something that we can share with them that The Flash embodies the kind of elements, like you said, that we want our kids to see in a superhero. Superman and Lois is great, but there are, mature adult moments in it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not always a show that we want to share with the kids, for at least right now in their age group. But, Flash, I remember us talking about it at the time because, we didn't have any kids when it came out. I mean, I was pregnant, but we didn't have anybody. And I remember us talking about it being a good show that we could, let a kid, however many kids we had, watch, as they got older and whatnot.
I might rewatch the first season with Solomon because he seemed really interested.
I think that's a great idea.
Because it would be fun to just go back to the first season. Maybe the first 2.
Your daughter's favorite character is Flash.
I know. It's crazy. But she doesn't ever want to watch it with me now. But maybe if we watch it from the beginning, because she sat and watched the pilot with us, that if we did the first 2 seasons, she would be interested in it.
She was interested in that pilot.
And that's why I think it'll be fun to do. Now, the one thing that I noticed, when Barry comes out of jitters, and his hands buzzing, and he takes off running, it's a whoosh. Mm-hmm. And I paid more attention, but Barry doesn't have his lightning.
Yeah.
Now, we haven't gone on to the second episode yet. And, the next part is the speed test, where he's in the proto-speedo suit. And he takes off running. We see a little bit of lightning in his eyes. And he crashes, but he never has his lightning. We learn that he has super healing.
We learn that he can go super freaking fast. They're like, surely he's not going to be able to go that fast. And he just...
Sonic boom.
Right.
And we learn about the birth of the Metas. And we learn that Joe, even in the scene, the biggest scene I think is we have the flashback of Barry talking about the night his mom died. And Joe being the officer there. And basically kind of pulling Barry back when Barry uncovers his dead mom. And Joe has always taken care of Barry. But, he doesn't ever believe that Barry saw a lightning storm inside his house. Right. And we have the scene where Barry saves Iris and he runs and he ends up in the car next to Martin.
Clyde Martin.
And not Chad Rook, Clyde Martin. Mm-hmm. and no lightning. And Joe says there's no way that it was Martin. He goes off on him about Barry's delusions. Yeah. And then the beat right after, it's Eddie Thawne showing up with the sketch artist. And I told you
this was like Clyde Martin.
What I told you was that's the person who drew the sketch for that scene. Straight up looked at the promo shot of because the jawline and twist was exactly the same as it was on the photograph. I was like, yeah, they just looked at that.
It's all good. Crap you let go of in order to enjoy the show.
Here it is in my note where Barry was listed as forensic assistant. But who's he assisting? Exactly.
Who's the actual forensic scientist here? What's up?
Now we get the next scene as Barry running to Star City and he gets the clothes on fire, and we get the scene with the Green Arrow this is where it really bookends what we saw, because that's where he says, be better, inspire people. You can save people in a flash. And he says, remember, that bolt of lightning chose you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
echoed and heard that.
And it's the same things that Ollie says in season 9 to him again.
Yeah.
That
Gave me
echoes.
goosebumps.
Yeah, it gave me goosebumps too, because, you know...
that's good writing, too. That's somebody who's, like, invested in the show enough to be like, we're going to go back here and make sure that we put, I don't know, it's good writing.
The only thing that's kind of sad about the pilot is, we get it, I think, the next episode or 2 more, when Diggle shows up, and Diggle's all, like, freaked out by how fast Barry moves. He's like, that's freaking weird. Do you think he does everything fast? Like, when he's in the bathroom, do you think, like, you know... Then we get the suit, and I don't know if you caught this, but when Eddie and Joe go to the barn where they find Martin, and he he starts his whole speech about being God and everything, and he throws Eddie back. Eddie gets knocked out on hay. Like, did you notice?
I did not notice that.
So Joe goes back and he hits his back, but Eddie goes like this. Like, against the hay. And I was like, how do you get knocked unconscious by hay? But then, like...
It was the force of the wind.
But then if you watch the scene when, you know, Joe's arguing with Martin about being God and all that stuff, he's like, well, my favorite line is, why does God need to rob banks? But if you notice, the next scene is Joe and Eddie running out of the barn.
Yeah.
But if you watch the scene, it's supposed to be Eddie out, unconscious, because when they throw down, Eddie's still out. But it looks like Eddie's running with Joe.
It does. God, that's hilarious.
Because, I've seen this probably like my 4th, 5th, or 6th time. I don't know. I've seen the pilot a lot. I'm just picking...
He has to be out in order for, Joe to be the only one that sees what happens
Barry.
next.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm paying attention, and then Barry shows up. He saves Joe, and he's in the suit. But it's not the full-on Flash suit. It doesn't have the symbol. And Barry's trying to figure out what to do. And we get the great scene of Harrison Wells, who basically lectured Barry about not being a hero and that he's not a hero.
Run, Barry, run.
And it's when he says that, when Barry runs, is when his lightning first sparks.
Yep.
It's one scene of Barry running in the backwards way of the tornado. His lightning shoots out. But for the rest of the time, he has no lightning.
Why in the world do you think Harrison Wells said something like that to Barry?
I don't know. Maybe because in reality, he needs Barry to get faster.
He knows Barry is faster.
He has to get him there for his own purposes. Mm-hmm. But then we get the great scene with Joe basically saying, you did see something that night, and I'm sorry. And your dad is innocent.
That I'm a douchebag.
And he's like, I'll help you. Yeah,
he's a great guy.
And then we get the scene between John Wesley Shipp as Henry Allen and Grant Gustin. And Junia, I'll let you talk about this part because you made some great observations.
All the two of them look like father and son, hardcore. It actually took me back because I remember watching this the first time I noticed, that they look similar, but not to the level and degree that I feel like I was able to look at this time. Their facial structures are ridiculously close. Their hair pattern is ridiculously close. Like, creepily so. Like, are they really... I even said to Tyler, I said, are they really related somewhere in life? Because holy crap.
She's like, DNA test it.
Seriously, though.
She's like, DNA test it, bro.
It is excellent casting. And if you already had John Wesley Shipp in mind for being Barry Allen's father, and then you had Grant Gustin come in an audition, like, I could see how you would just be like...
There it is.
He's a great actor, which is awesome, but he looks like this, and it's like, boom, just snaps right into place.
I love that this show plays as much as they can, much like the Superman. Superman always does legacy casting, in a sense. They always find a way to honor what had come in the past by having a previous super actor appear in whatever the newest current projects are.
I love legacy casting.
So the fact that they went above and beyond to even have the previous live action Flash be the father to the current Flash was awesome, and it worked.
I love that he wanted to be. I love that he said yes to it.
And as much as he participated in it, later on. Awesome. And I mean, that scene is so emotionally, and that was their first day on set together when they shot that scene.
And they are both excellent actors. Like, they both were able to emote so beautifully, like that father and son relationship. It's so believable. It's so believable. There was a moment that I don't know why I felt like I wanted to bring it up, but there was a moment, I think it was the second time that Barry went to Star Labs in that episode, and something stuck out to me where he was talking to Cisco and Caitlin in particular. And Cisco was being really immature, childish about the situation, almost like talking about, Cisco does this throughout the show where he's like saying stuff like, oh, this is really cool, when it's something that's, detrimental to people. But in that current moment, he said to Barry, like, oh, it was after the accident with Iris and whatnot. Because, yeah. But he said to Barry and to Caitlin, he was like, oh, that's so cool, talking about Clyde Martin's abilities. And Barry goes, no, people freaking died. This is not cool.
He's like, a man died, lost his life.
Like, he was infuriated by it. And what happened to me in that moment when I heard this was, you don't always see, like, the direction of things until you, like, go backwards and you, like, actually, like, look at the beginning and how stuff started. This is why it's important that we don't forget our past, right?
Yeah.
But looking at the beginning and seeing how things started, like, you recognize that Barry taught them so much. Like, not only did he gain a lot from the companionship and the relationship between Caitlin and Cisco, but, like, he taught them a lot too. I don't know, it just kind of, like, opened my eyes to the evolution of the characters that were present and how much even Cisco evolves throughout the series and whatnot, and grows and matures and learns from Barry and Barry's compassion. Barry is the heart. He brings everyone's heart out of themselves, if that makes sense. So, I don't know. I think it's really cool. I think that for me, watching this episode again, it shows you once again this very beautiful, grounded character that is Barry Allen. Like, he is the heart, he is the hope. And that's why this pilot is as strong as it is.
Piggybacking off that, it's like the scene at the beginning where Barry's getting beat up by the bullies. And he comes home and his mom's taking care of him. And his dad comes in, you find out he was in a fight. Mm-hmm. But he was in a fight because he stood up for some other kid.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes right back to, like, what you just said about him teaching other people to be better.
And he does it by being himself.
So, the end of the episode ends with a voiceover bookending, and it's kind of the next angle of what we saw at the beginning. The way we saw at the beginning was him running through the street, like just the flash. And at the end, he says, I'm going to have a new name. It's going to catch on. And then he runs by and it says, the title card comes, it says The Flash.
Mm-hmm.
And then I forgot that at the end it actually goes as far as showing Wells open the secret passage.
I forgot that too.
Open Gideon and stand up out of the wheelchair. Because Sayla was like, what?
Yeah.
She's like, he's bad, right? What's going on? And I was like, I totally forgot it went that far.
I did too.
In the pilot to showing us the 2024 The Flash disappears in crisis.
Yep.
And I was like, wow, like that is a
you
pilot.
You knew he had an agenda from day one. You didn't know what it was, but you knew he had
that
an
is
agenda.
A pilot that sets up so much.
Yeah.
That builds it, and it didn't hold back.
No.
And I think that's the great thing about like the series. Like they didn't hold back. They were putting everything out there and like we're gonna make the best We can. And I know, like, I'm recording this now because I know if we were to record this right after the show ended, I'd probably be even more emotional because even though the show has dipped in quality, Grant has not dipped in quality.
No, he's excellent.
But it is going to be sad because it's been such a comfort show for me for 9 years.
Yeah.
I mean, the show, it was one of those things like you don't look at all the time, but like it was hyped, it was coming, and it was in the background of when our son was born. Mm-hmm. And now here our boy is, 8 years old. Because I remember coming home from work and watching on DVR and holding and feeding him and stuff.
Yeah.
I remember like, because I said I watched the leaked pilot. We still watched the pilot live when it aired. Like, I was going to support the show all the way, and I wanted to see if anything was different. But I still watched the pilot as it aired live with Junia. And it was a good time, and it was a great first season. And I'm going to miss it when it's off the air, but that's life,
Unfortunately, it is.
And I've probably said this multiple times on the recordings, but I find it ridiculously weird, Junia, that with everything that's happened, the day after the pilot of The Flash debuted, they announced Ezra Miller as the Flash for Justice League, and that he would get his own solo movie. Less than a month after Flash ends, the Flash movie will premiere in theaters.
That's so weird, yeah.
So,
well, you know that they're doing something with it.
And I'm just saying, like, it's very interesting because Grant has had this long tenure as the Flash, leading the character. And
he's arguably the most iconic.
I will say he is. Like,
he set a standard, I really believe. Like, just to kind of bookend this real quick, like, Grant Gustin set a standard for the heart and soul that is Flash. And to be honest with you, as much as I do enjoy Ezra Miller, I think that Ezra is great at the fun parts of the Flash. And there are moments of depth with him. But we have had the pleasure of seeing Grant Gustin just go there.
But we've seen him grow.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard. It's rewatching the earlier seasons definitely shows a different, younger version compared to where he is now. So I think he will be my favorite Flash.
Yeah, me too.
So thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Flash. For Flash Week, I'm Tyler, and with me is
Junia.
We'll catch you later. Look out in the street.
Look up in the sky.
We just want to say, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please check out other podcasts on the Press Play Podcast Network. We're going to press pause and hear a few words from our other podcasts on Press Play Podcast Network.
Hello, Brooks here with the Books with Brooks monthly book club podcast. Here's how Books with Brooks works. We read one book a month, and then we talk about it. Classics like Stephen King's The Shining, debut novels like We Are the Brennans by Tracy Lang, and tons of other compelling, life-changing stories, one book and 1 month at a time. So come read along with us, and then listen in.
If you are like Tyler and James and can't get enough super talk, check out these other podcasts. Digging for Kryptonite, Supergirl Radio, The Last Sons of Krypton, The Superboy Legacy Podcast, All-Star Superfans, Superman the Animated Podcast, The Aspiring Kryptonians, Always Hold On to Smallville, The Geek of Steel, and Truth, Justice, and Hope.
Remember to check out Krypton Report on all social media platforms. Go to linktree.com/Krypton Report. You find all of our reports.
This is Dan Jurgens, and if you want to have a good time, keep listening to the Krypton Report.
Before we start this episode of Krypton Report, I want to take a moment and just give a shout out here to our Patreon. I know what you're thinking. Gosh, everyone's asking for money, and I get it. But our Patreon is only $1. $1 a month that helps us keep the podcast going. And what we do is we try to find interesting shows and topics and whatever we want to talk about. We've done As of this little thing, our last recordings were on the Scream series. Brian and Tyler, that's me, do our own show where we record in the car, and it's kind of funny. And we talk about pop culture or whatever is going on. We also have the Supernatural podcast we've been reworking. It's taken some time just because of life. But we do movie commentaries as well. It's something that James and I have done, what we used to do on the main show that we've started doing here. So for $1 a month on our Patreon, you can get those shows. There's at least 4 a month. Also, there's my movie pitch show that I do. But also, what we want is if you're a Patreon, you can come on. You can come on the main show if you want. Or if there's something you want to come on and talk about, we can do it as a Patreon special. So all I want is for $1 a month, think about chipping in, joining our Patreon, and you have a voice to be a part of things. Follow the link in the link tree or in the show notes below, patreon.com/KryptonReport.